Hey, what's up? Welcome to DGen Ed. That's degenerative education, meaning none of this is financial advice. Just me having fun looking at charts, like the chart behind me, which is of Polestar Automotive, ticker symbol PSNY. And so here I am recording this on Wednesday, July 3rd, after the market has closed, and Polestar closed at a price of 89.02 cents, being down a little over 1.5% on the day. But overall, it does look like it has bounced. So I just wanted to do a follow-up because the last time I put out a video on Polestar was just about a month ago on June 4th. And I posed the question, is Polestar digging their own grave? And so the reason why I had some growing concerns was because at the time they had not released their quarter one earnings or fourth quarter earnings for 2023. And so I was just thinking that they were not really looking so good with that, delays due to issues in accounting. And they had said that by the end of June, they would be releasing their earnings. And I just felt like, when they release their earnings, maybe they're not going to be so good and it's just going to drop more. But as it turns out, earnings were released as far as the fourth quarter of 2023, as well as the first quarter of 2024. So you can see both of those there. One being released on June 28th for the quarter of last year, and then July 2nd for the first quarter of 2024. And basically leading up to those releases, there was just a massive bleed in the stock price. I had suggested that it could come down to 50 cents. The low ended up being 65 cents. So I was a little bit off there, but following, the close on June 4th, when price was, the close was 75.18. Price came down further to 65 cents. That's a drop of nearly or just about 13%. But now price has moved up, as we can see from that low, coming up to, about a 50% swing to the upside. So looking pretty nice there, but is it going to continue to the upside? Might there be a pullback? Or, ultimately, is it going to come down to 50 cents? And so I have to say, part of the reason why I was a little concerned or a little skeptical about Polestar is because I have seen what's happened to Fisker. I have seen what's happened to Lordstown Motors. And some of these EV stocks, they can bleed down to nothing, go bankrupt, and, the share price can just basically go down to zero. So I just have some concern with Polestar about that. I was, in all fairness, concerned about that. I think it was justifiable, but now we have seen this bounce. So where do I think it could be going from here? And one thing that I do think is pretty interesting is that price did reside around this downtrend that I have drawn there. And so that, if we do take a step back, goes back pretty far in time. So it's these two pivot points here going back all the way to October of 2022. I could also have adjusted this pivot low to be one of the pivot points over here. But as you can see, that has been respected for a very long time. And these dips that we saw below it, right around the time I put out the last video, price did go lower than those lows, but those lows that we just recently saw were great dip buying opportunities, as it has turned out. But we could always pull back and pull back down to lower lows while still respecting this downtrend. So good to be considerate of that. But as far as the price action goes over the past few days, we do see these big wicks to the upside, so that does get me a little bit concerned that a top might be in. However, this is some sideways action following an up move, so maybe this is a bull flag or some bullish consolidation before a break to the upside. But what I could see happening is actually a pullback to around 84 cents, corresponding with these tops over here in these candles, wicks up to that level, as you can see here where the cursor is. And so I think that could be acting as support if we do get a pullback. We actually did see a pullback down to a low of 82.05 cents on Tuesday, July 2nd. And so, I could see that being a dip buying opportunity if it does come down to there, but also it could go lower. I do have the 1618 from this retracement here. That is at a price of 76.23 cents. So maybe price comes down to there. But I also think that, because we have seen a low here at 65 cents and the highs up here, actually, let's see, the high of yesterday was 97.98 cents. Today, it was the exact same price. So I'm just going to do a retracement from the low of 65 cents up to the high of these past 2 days. All right, and so from that, we can see some levels that stand out. One of those being the 382, which would roughly correspond with these highs over here that I just talked about. That is at 85.38 cents. The 50% retracement is at 81.49 cents. So maybe we could be coming down to there. But what really stands out to me here is this golden pocket ranging from 76.54 cents up to 77.6 cents, that being the 65% to the 618 retracements there, and that does correspond with the 1618. So, I could see price coming down to right around 76, 77 cents, maybe finding a bottom there before continuing higher. But if it does continue higher, what are some levels that we want to look to for the upside? And so I do have this downtrending level here based on these two pivot lows, one being the low hit on February 23rd, the other being the low hit on April 25th. And that does correspond pretty nicely with approximately the close hit on May 20th before we saw this gap down. And so getting to that level, breaking above it would really be like, breaking above, closing above 98 cents, also closing above the recent highs. So I think that would look good. But what would look really good is getting a close or getting a move up to the close from May 20th. That was at a price of $1.10. Although, I do think that we could be bumping into some resistance there as, before, this big drop to the downside. So from there was this gap and then price did come down. Let's see, over 40% to the downside. So anybody who bought here expecting price to go higher, they definitely had some concerns over the past month and a half, and they might want to offload some shares if price does get back up to that level. So there might be some resistance there, but I do see that as being an important level for us to be getting back to, that being at a price of $1.10. And so now that I have it marked there and also coloring it blue, so we know there is a gap there. There is also another gap to the upside that does still need to be filled. The previous day, May 17th, we closed at a price of $1.24 before gapping down. That has still not yet been filled. While we do see overlap in the wicks, we do not see overlaps in the candles. That suggests that is a gap there, still needs to be filled. So that is, again, at a price of $1.24. Just above that, I have this yellow line at $1.26. We did get some consolidation above that. There might also be some resistance there. And then I do have this orange line, the 1618 from this retracement here. That is at a price of $1.13. But another level that I have not mentioned is $1 a share. That being about 2 cents above the highs, a little above 2 cents higher than what we saw the past couple days. And so I think that could be suggesting some strength if we are to be getting multiple closes above $1 a share. But that is a psychological level. Also, with this being listed on the NASDAQ, it needs to be holding monthly and daily closes above $1 a share to remain compliant with the NASDAQ. It has been down for quite some time, and so there is a little bit of risk there, but we might be seeing that in the next couple weeks. If we can get multiple closes above $1 a share and hold above 110, I do think we could be seeing some upside, and the downside could be behind us. But I must also remind you all that we are still in this downtrending channel, although we have now broken into the blue region of it, and getting up to the top of it would be right around $1.21, or maybe, since it is downtrending, corresponding at that time with around $1.13, that orange line marked here from that 1618 from this retracement. But it also could be getting to $2 a share, marked here in red. However, the price target was cut from $2 to $1 a share, so that is something to note. But one thing I forgot to do at the beginning of the video is I wanted to go over one of these articles that goes over some of their earnings. All right, and so here we can see that Polestar stock slumps despite cost-cutting delivery growth. And so there are just a couple points in here that I wanted to go over. And so surging deliveries among strong reviews. And so in quarter two, Polestar's EV deliveries soared 80% versus the previous quarter to about 13,000 deliveries. And in the first half of 2024, the automaker landed over 20,200 EVs. The automaker handed over 20,200 EVs. Among the markets in which the company reported that it was seeing strong momentum were the US, Sweden, Norway, and Germany. So, I think that's looking pretty good. But also wanted to point out some other things that are maybe a little bit concerning. Large revenue decline and layoffs. So in quarter one, Polestar sales sank 36% versus the same period a year earlier to $345.3 million. Among the factors behind the decline were lower EV sales and higher discounts, the company reported. Additionally, Polestar reported that its Q1 sales were negatively affected by complexities related to its recognition of revenue by its China-based joint venture. And so I imagine that is why they've had delays in their earnings report due to accounting issues. Again, made me doubt the company a lot. And I think that, it's valid. But meanwhile, the firm's operating loss rose 5%, or $11.8 million in quarter one versus the same period a year earlier. And finally, it generated a gross loss of $30.8 million in quarter one versus a gross profit of $23.2 million in quarter one of 2023. And Polestar also noted that it had reduced its workforce by 15% this year, in line with an announcement that it had made in January. So, hopefully that gives you some perspective on the stock, on the company. That is encouraging, because I do think that what Polestar has done is they have lowered expectations very, very low. Just getting an earnings report out was a big deal. And due to that, even though their earnings report, as far as I can understand, was not that great, price did go up, as we can see here. And so hopefully that does continue. We start to see these moves to the upside to fill the gap at 110, 124, maybe getting up to $2 a share. But, we might be seeing some pullbacks, and those would be discounted opportunities. So, that is what I would be looking for. But like I had said, I am a little skeptical about the company, and I think that it is pretty risky, as some other EV companies have been proven to be risky in the past. This might be another one, so do trade cautiously. But, those are just my thoughts. If you found them helpful, make sure you like the video, share your thoughts in the comments down below, and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. Thanks a lot for watching.